We're going to add in the crease line down here. We're also going to add in this little door handle or whatever it is right here. And we're also going to add in the light strip that goes back here, as well as some simple lights to go at the top. So let's go back to our model. And we're going to press tab to go to edit mode. We're going to do Control 1 to go to back view, Z for wireframe. I believe this one is the edge that we need to select, so we're going to alt right click on this one. This one's the one that gets the bevel here, or the separation area right here. So we're going to select this edge here. And what we're going to do is just do Control B, do a small bevel. Then you can do I to inset, do a small inset. Then you can do E to extrude, right click to cancel, Alt S, and just bring this in slightly, and that'll give us our little separation area here. You can always make the bevel larger or smaller to increase or decrease the size of this area, the size of the separation, depending on what you think is appropriate. So now we're going to start creating the light that goes behind this window here. The number of little LED lights that they have, I believe these are LED lights. They have 12 of them. These little circles here that are on this white piece. There's 12 of them. I believe they're LED lights. And then on the center, you've got another light in the center. It seems that you have another light right here. So we're going to make the outer circle. We're going to make 12 of those little things, and we'll make the center light as well. So since we have 12 of these little circle things, we're going to make a circle that has 12 vertices to go around the outside of this to match the 12 LED lights that we have. So we're just going to, if you have your cursor here already, you're all set, or you can just left click on the bus, left click over here, tab into edit mode, do create, circle, change the vertex count to 12 and press enter, RX and then 90, press enter, just rotates it 90 degrees on the x-axis, S to scale it down, bring it in, S to scale it down again. We're just going to position this according to how we believe it's situated in our reference here. So it's at the top of the window. You can do Control 1 if you want, Z for wireframe, and kind of just position it over here. We can always adjust the size and scale as well as position of this later, so it's not super important. We can change these things later. Then we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, S to scale this down. This is going to be like the area, the white area that goes around just behind the LED lights. It's got this white circle. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, and we want to bring it back on the y-axis slightly. And then we can alt right click on the outside, E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring this back. So this will be the outer part of the light. Alt right click on this part here, E to extrude, right click to cancel, scale it in, and bring it forward some, because this part does appear like maybe it looks better in this one, but it's hard to tell. But it does look like, usually lights have a circular shape. They're not flat. They'll have an outward circle, kind of like what I'm creating here, where it went in and then it's coming back out again, so it's more circular and rounded. That's basically what we're trying to create here. And then what I did was created a circular area right here in the center, similar to the circular light that you have right here. And in order to do that, what I did was just go to Create, do UV Sphere, change the segments to 12, change the rings to 12. Because we use 12 on our circle, we want to use 12 on the sphere. Do RX90, press enter. Most of these rings we can get rid of. We only need a small area here, so you only need this much. So we want to delete the rest, so we're just going to alt right click, delete, choose vertices, select a vertex here, do Control L, delete, choose vertices. So now you have your little circular shape. If you wanted to, you could do Control Z and keep this ring as well, and then just delete this one instead so you have more of a circular shape. I'm going to do that just for now, just to save more of that shape in case we want to. We can always delete this ring later. It's easier to delete it later than it is to try to create it again. So now we can just do Control L, select one of these vertices, do Control L, S to scale this down, Control 1 for back view, S to scale it some more, Z for wireframe, G to move it into position, scale it down some more, bring it into position, and scale it down some more until it's a bit smaller than this. We want to line this up perfectly so it's exactly in the center. In order to do that, we're going to change this to median point, or we're going to change it to individual origins actually. So change it to individual origins. Grab it on the Z-axis, hold Control, snap it there. Grab it on the X-axis, hold Control, snap it there. So this is the perfect center point for the X-axis. And this is for the Z-axis. So now it's perfectly centered. You can do S to scale and you see it's lining up perfectly with the rest of the circle. The only thing is now we actually have to bring this back on the Y-axis. At least in my case I had to bring it back on the Y-axis. So just position it accordingly. Something like this should be fine. It doesn't have to be lined up perfectly with the other one. So now you should have your light structure. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually change this back to median point, shift select one of these points on the other part, do Control L, 3 for side view, and we're going to bring this closer to the back window because it actually looks like it's pretty close to the back window, like we're almost right up against it actually. So that looks pretty good, I would say. So now we have our back light. The only thing we need to add is those little LED lights that go around. To do that, we're going to go to Create, choose Circle, change the vertex count to 6, press Enter. RX then 90, press Enter. S to scale it down. Bring it over. You can do Control 1 if you want. G to move it, S to scale it down. Bring it into position approximately. You want it to be a little bit smaller than this area here between these two, because this is that white area. This ring around here is this white area that you can see here, and then the LEDs are a little bit smaller and they kind of fit in there in between that area. So something like that is probably appropriate. Again, we can change this to individual origins, grab it on the X, hold Control, snap it there. If you want it perfectly centered, do Control R, left click, right click, Alt right click to get this, grab it on the Z, hold Control, snap it there. That'll make sure it's perfectly centered on the Z axis as well as the X axis. Then we're going to Alt right click, delete and dissolve edges because we actually didn't need that edge. We were just using it to position it perfectly in the center. That was the only reason we made that edge. So now we have this. We need to rotate it around accordingly. So we need to position our cursor so we can do that. So we can actually select any of these rings that go around. Just do Alt right click. And I'm just checking. Yeah, that one should be fine, but really you can just Alt right click on any of these rings that go around and it should be totally fine. So I'll just do Control 1, we'll do it the way we did it, just Alt right click, Shift S, cursor to selected. That's going to put the cursor exactly in the center of this object. Alt right click here, change this to 3D cursor, then press F, or actually I'm going to do Control Z to undo that. You want to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, Alt M at center, and change this to median point, period to focus in on it, and just pull it out slightly so it's now actually, it's a bit more rounded, kind of like a light would be. And we're actually just going to do select linked, and we're going to position this a bit further out. And then what we want to do is snap it to one of these points. So press 3 on your number pad, grab it on the y-axis, hold Control, snap it to one of these points. Then do Control 1. Your 3D cursor should still be centered on this object. If not, do Alt right click, Shift S, cursor to selected, change this to 3D cursor, Alt right click, Control L, Shift D, R 30, press enter, and then Shift R until you have all of your LED lights here. So that is it for that. We have our nice little light structure. To create the light bar, it's a lot easier. It's just a rectangle with the more LED lights, I'm guessing, but it's really hard to tell. But it does look like those are similar to those in this picture, so I'm guessing this is just more lights. There's about 12. We're going to make about 13, I think. To do that, we're going to left click on the bus, left click over here, do create, choose plane, R, X, and then 90, press enter, S to scale it down, bring it to the center. You should see them join at the center. You can change this to median point, bring this down a bit, scale it down a bit, Control 1 for back view, scale it down maybe a little more, bring it down a bit more. So this is a little bit above the bottom of where the window is, so you want to make sure that it's a bit above the bottom of the window. This is the bottom of the window, and this is a bit above the bottom of the window. Maybe you want this to be a little skinnier and a little bit longer, so I'm just going to scale this. Until you have the appropriate shape. So maybe something like that, I guess, will be fine. We're just going to steal our little LED light, so we're just going to select one of these points, Control L, Shift E, right click to cancel, G, and bring it over here. So now we have one of our little LED lights. If we want to position it perfectly in the center, do Control R, left click, right click, select a vertex, Control L, change this to individual origins, grab it on the Z, hold Control, snap it there. Now it's perfectly centered. You can see the center point is lined up with that, so you can bring this over. Alt right click, delete, dissolve edges. We don't need that edge anymore. We just wanted it to help us center this better. I think these circular lights should be a bit bigger than what this is. So I'm going to select one of these points, Control L, S to scale it out until it's a bit bigger. Just make it as large as you feel is appropriate. So we need about 12. I'm probably going to make 13. So we have 1, which is the center point, because it does seem like there's 1 in the center. It's hard to tell, I know, it's hard to tell, but we're going to pretend there's 1 in the center. So we need 11, but we have it mirrored. So we can actually do 5 or 6 edge loops, depending on how many you want. So you can do Control R, mouse wheel up until it says number of cuts 5 at the bottom, or 6, depending on how many LED lights you feel you want to have. Maybe I'll just do 5, maybe I'll do 6, I don't know. It's not really important. The process will be the same either way. So if you do 6, just left click, right click, select a vertex, Control L, grab it on the X, snap it here. Should still be on individual origins. Then do Shift D, press X to limit it to the X axis. Hold Control, snap it here. If you've done that correctly, you can just do Shift R until you have all of your little LED lights. Now that I'm looking at this, let me see. Well, they are kind of close, so maybe this is fairly accurate. I don't know. You can always do 5 if you feel you want 5 instead. 5 on each side plus 1 in the center. It's up to you, really. And for this center one, we're just going to make sure we're in wireframe by pressing Z. C for circle select, get all these, do W, remove doubles. Just to make sure that there's none extra in the center. Then there's an extra vertex here, so select it, Shift select, Alt M at last. Select, Shift select, Alt M at last, get rid of those extra vertices there. We can also get rid of these horizontal lines. We can go to Edge Select. Select one of these horizontal edges, Shift, right click to select the rest of these. You have to leave the center one, of course. Press Delete and choose Dissolve Edges. So now we have our little light strip with the LED lights. If you want to at this point, you can adjust the outer border. Or you can leave it right where it was. It's up to you. But it does look like the border is actually more in, so I'm going to bring this in a bit. So that should be it for that. Now the only thing that's left is actually to select one of these, Control L, grab it on the Y-axis, hold Control, snap it to one of these points. I think that should be correct. And then select one of the edges on each of these lights. Do Control L so that we should have all the lights as well as the light strip selected. 3 for side view, Z for wireframe, and bring it close to the back of the bus, but not sticking through the back of the bus. So now we should have these light structures in place. The last thing is to make this little door handle or whatever it is that is just below the light strip. To do that, we're going to create a plane, so just go to Create, choose Plane, RX90, press Enter, S to scale this down, bring it to the center, bring it down, S to scale it down, Control 1 for back view, Z for wireframe, scale it down some more, bring it up, scale it down some more, get it into position, make it smaller by bringing it in. Needs to be a little bit smaller than the width of the light strip. As you can see, the light strip's a bit wider than this little door handle thing. This is probably relatively close to what we want. Maybe a little bit more in. And a bit more up. And maybe a bit longer here. That looks good. You'll notice it has beveled corners, so we want to make some beveled corners. Same on this one. It's harder to tell, but there definitely are beveled corners, so we're going to select the corner vertices. And another thing to keep in mind is we want these bottom vertices slightly above this bottom line, just so that this thing doesn't bend the way that it did on this one. Like you can kind of tell right here, you can see that the bottom shading is a little bit different. It's because it's actually physically bent, because I made it a little bit below that line. So it's actually a little bit bent. It's getting some stranger shading. If you're okay with that, you can make it a little bit below that line. If you're not okay with that, make it above the line. So we actually angled this part of the bus. We angled it in, if you remember. So we're going to do Control L on this piece. We're going to bring it out. Since it's not a flat surface, the easiest way to make sure that these points are aligned to the surface is the shrink wrap modifier. So we're going to press P, choose selection, tab to object mode, select this newly created object, go to the object modifiers tab, add a modifier, shrink wrap, click on the eyedropper for target, select the bus, left click, change it from nearest to project, change it from positive to negative, and I believe that should probably be fine. We can turn off positive. And it doesn't look like any of these options are actually going to help us here. They all have to be enabled, it seems, for this to work. Then you can just apply this modifier in object mode. Make sure you're in object mode. Apply the modifier. This should still be selected. Shift select the bus. Do Control J to join them. Tab to edit mode. So now these are perfectly shrink wrapped to that surface here. Now we can select these points. You should have these 4 selected. Do Control 1 for back view, Z for wireframe. So now we're going to create that beveled corner. Do Control Shift and B, mouse wheel up twice, create the beveled corner there, left click, face select, select this face. We want to create an area that goes around. We want to create an area like this. The easiest way to do that is to inset. So we're just going to do I for inset, B for border. Well, we actually can't do that because this is technically the border still, so just right click to cancel that. What we're going to do instead is we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring this out slightly because there is some depth to this. You can see this is actually sticking out a bit, and it's harder to tell in this one, but it is sticking out a bit from the bus. Not too far though, so just do a small, bring it out slightly. Do Control 1, Z for wireframe. Now do I and then B. This is probably appropriate, so just left click when you have the correct distance here. Switch to vertex select. You'll notice these two edges crossed each other. What I'm actually going to do is select these two vertices, Alt M at center, merge them at the center, do the same on the bottom. Select these two, Alt M at center, back to face select, Z for wireframe, and we can actually delete this back face. So select the back face, do delete, choose faces, and select this front face. And we can do E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring it back some. That'll create this little border effect that we have going on here. Switch to vertex select, Alt right click, and we may need to Alt and Shift right click and Alt and Shift right click to get all this. Shift D to duplicate, right click to cancel, and then F to make a face. E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring this back some, just bring it back slightly. You can go to side view if you want and see how far I brought mine back, not too far. Back to face select, select this face again. Control number pad 1, Z for wireframe. So we want to create this inner beveled area. And actually I think we pretty much already did, but let me look at my other one and see what I did here. I think I just did a small inset to keep the shape. So just do I and then B, bring it out and then bring it back in slightly to make a small inset, and then left click, and that should be fine. Now you just want to do Control L, Control N to recalculate the normals. We can go to object mode, tools, turn on smooth shading. tab back to edit mode. We're going to need to Alt right click, Alt and Shift right click, Alt and Shift right click, and then get these last two with Shift right click, I and then B, do a small inset, and then we should be all set. Before I forget, there's one more thing we should do. Just tab to object mode, switch to face select, and you want to delete this back face. So you get this face here, then you get the back face. Just press delete, choose faces. When you press tab, you should still see the face on this side. So if you deleted the wrong face, just do Control Z and delete the other face, but it should be this one back here. We created an extra face on accident, so just make sure you delete it. And then everything else should look okay. Then again, just do File and Save.